There's
underwater
an
UFO that suddenly
ancient
changes its
Olmec
appearance like a ghost
carving
into a monster,
of
into
this
what our
character, and
subconscious
he's
thinks
sitting
should be
inside
in there.
of
It's
what's
kind of like a
obviously a
UFO does.
snake, which is
That's
it's
it
got the
right there,
rattlesnake
man.
tail.
Like, what
So
if these things can
he's sitting.
simply alter their appearance? What if these things can simply appear at will? Like, there's bizarre stories of Bigfoot vanishing into thin air. Like, there's lots of these stories, and that's what's so strange about it. Like, I think that if Bigfoot was completely physical, it was an ape that lived in the woods round the clock, and it was a real physical thing like a grizzly bear or a moose. I'm convinced that there would have been bones discovered by now. There would
Yeah.
have been something. There would have been a body found, a burial or something. I think that these things are slightly ethereal, slightly out of phase from the rest of this reality.
That works.
As weird as that sounds, I know.
But it's exactly true because it's the only way to describe this phenomenon. These are like some kind of phenomenon which isn't quite fitting into our
I
time,
know.
but it's sort of there but not there as not as much as we are here.
Well,
Um,
well, I listened to a podcast on a Castbox, which is just basically an app you put on your phone. You can carry around the podcasts, and I have downloaded probably about 60 expanded perspectives podcasts. And the stuff that they'll talk about in expanded perspectives is some of the most wild, wacky stuff you've ever heard. I just remember the other day working listening to this. A woman in, I think it was Illinois, said that she was going for a walk, and in the bushes she heard like a noise, and she looked over and she saw in the bushes she saw a saber-toothed tiger. And she said she was like absolutely terrified. But what was the most bizarre thing about it to her was she said that only she could only see half of the saber-toothed tiger. Different, I think it was like the lower one side of its body was kind of like shape, like it was kind of like it wasn't really so much there. It was like half the body was missing. It was like almost like she was seeing into a time tens of thousands of years ago when saber-toothed tigers used to roam the continent, and she was seeing literally a ghost of a saber-toothed tiger doing its thing thousands of years ago. I just I know it's nuts, man. I know, dude. I know how crazy this stuff is.
that sort of story is quite common if you look into the whole UFO literature. This time travel thing and the whole ghost thing. There's so much time travel going on, and I often wonder, do people go missing? It's also, as you know, probably it's an ancient Irish tale. The guy wanders too close to the fairy mound, and then he vanishes, and then he comes back 1,000 years later, and he says, "Whoa, everything's changed." You know.
Yeah, yeah. Like some of the leprechaun stories are some of the most fascinating ones, like where people have tried to grab on to leprechauns, and the leprechaun has to take them into their little lair, and then they see a pile of gold, and the leprechaun tells them, okay, you see the sun falling right now? You can take as much gold as you can grab. But if you stay in here until the sun goes down over that window, you're going to be trapped in here forever. And so the guy started trying to grab as much gold as he could. His shirt, like he tried to fill up gold into like his shirt, and he tied it in like a big knot, and his shirt ripped. And eventually he was able to grab a few handfuls, and he jumped out the leprechaun's house right before the door sealed, and he would have been shut in there forever.
You know the
Like,
the, the leprechaun story, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, my internet crashed. I had to reset my whole router and whatnot.
oh shoot, man. Yeah, we figured. Yeah, Amy said that.
Um, the leprechaun story with the rainbow with the pot of gold. The gold represents the sun, and you don't get a rainbow without sunlight. So we anthropomorphize everything, even cats and dogs. I mean, if you have cats and dogs, how many times have you looked at your spouse and the dog is giving you a funny look, and you talk to your spouse as though you're speaking for the dog, right? It's like, well, I didn't do it. You know what I mean? You make funny voices, and we talk for our animals. We anthropomorphize everything. It's human nature. And I remember, Charles, you might remember this. When I was traveling, and my wife and I went up to Devil's Tower, Wyoming, and you were on the show. We interviewed you, and about Devil's Tower. Um, there's a Native American legend around Devil's Tower that has to do with seven sisters, seven maiden girls, Indian maiden girls, who they were being chased by a bear. And the legend is that they climbed up on top of this hill or mound and to escape this bear. And some Native American god rescued them by raising the hill up into the sky away from the bear. And as the bear clawed his way, try to get to these girls, that's what created the striations, the stripes or the lines of the Devil's Tower monument. And I'm reading this literature pamphlet while I'm there, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, wait a minute. And I went back and I started reading from the beginning, and it said there were seven girls. And I went, oh, seven, huh? Boom, Pleiades, done and done. So they,
Right.
so they anthropomorphized a story to explain what they didn't understand about the tower and how it related to something in the sky. And the young maiden girls, they were trapped up there because it was so tall and they couldn't get down. And they eventually became part of the heavens, which became the Pleiades, the seven stars. And so it's all an anthropomorphized version, one after another after another. So literally everything that happens on Earth or in the sky, particularly the sky, because that's, again, that was their HBO, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, the sun, the moon, they didn't understand. Ancient people, they didn't understand. They didn't understand gravity, they didn't understand electricity, they didn't understand planetary physics, they didn't understand comets, they didn't understand asteroids. Rocks fell from the sky, earthquakes happened, volcanoes happened, they didn't understand. Everything was anthropomorphized, everything became something from the gods. The gods were angry, the gods were happy, the gods gave us good crops, the gods ruined our crops, the gods were pissed off, we did something wrong, maybe we should sacrifice more children. You know,
Yeah.
everything became a religion based on anthropomorphized stuff that they didn't understand.
Well, I just think, truthfully, when it comes to reality, the universe, and everything, I just truthfully 100% believe we simply cannot comprehend the true nature of the universe. Our primitive science is so backwards and it's so far off from how complex the universe really is. It's like us listening to druids thousands of years ago trying to explain to us, like I always say this: our modern scientists in their white in their white lab coats are like the druids from thousands of years ago. So the druids with their white cloaks and our scientists from modern times are the same exact thing. White cloaked uh, believers that they have the ultimate knowledge of the universe. Whereas right now we are at such a primitive state of evolution. We're like monkeys trying to comprehend rocket science, and that's how little we understand about how the universe truly is. We're like in an infantile
My
state.
my thought on that is that absolutely we are highly advanced. However, we are beset by psychopaths who are in control and maintain control by hiding most of the things that would help humanity understand what's going on.
I truly don't believe there is superior as they would like the common person to perceive them as. I don't believe that they're as all-knowing as they'd like people to think.
Well, aside from the fact that there are, I mean, I know they've got electrogravitics in black projects.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Okay, so I know that they've got tons of science that they don't let us have. And if I was a psychopath and I had all the money in the universe, I'd want to maintain control of everything. And I wouldn't let them have most of the stuff that I have, including understanding. In fact, I would do my best to send them on wild goose chases and maybe pay somebody to pump a theory as a mad scientist sort of guy that was a theory that had enough in it that some things could be made to work, but it wouldn't work completely and it wouldn't predict, say, free energy. And maybe give it to somebody who was, oh, I don't know, a patent clerk or something, find somebody like that, put him in the role of mad scientist, tell him to espouse these theories that I gave him because I know that they'd be just workable enough that people wouldn't question them a whole lot. And, meanwhile, I'd have the truth and I would know what was really going on. And in fact, according to Paul Laviolette, in black projects, they do use a physics that is very different from the one that is out in the open. And it does include an ether. So, I don't know. I'm thinking we've got a lot more understanding, some of us, than you might think. And the reports are that they are at least 50 years, and some people say as much as 100 to 150 years more advanced than what they let us have.
Yeah, I'm convinced that a lot of that stuff that you hear, like, oh my God, there many thousand. Like, there's the one, of course, there's the case of the guy who was like, I think he was like the president or CEO of Lockheed Martin. He said something along the lines of, "We can build the same things that ET can at the
Yeah,
moment."
we can take ET
Yeah,
home, I
and
think
we
as well.
and we can take ET home. I think more so what that would be like misinformation and basically simple bullshit to fuck with the Russians and the Chinese.
Well, I no, because I'll tell you something. The Russians and the Chinese are under governments, which are corporations, which are owned by the same people that own the United States Corporation and the Australian Corporation and the Canadian Corporation and the,
Yeah, and we got it.
just fill in the blank. But they keep about the divisions to keep us divided, to keep us conquered and focusing on fighting each other rather than at their impetus, I might add, rather than trying to do something about them.
Well, we're all busy playing catch up.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys, it's 10 o'clock, and we got to say to everyone, we apologize for the shenanigans. We It was a good show though, the first bit there until the
I,
very
I,
end.
I don't think they're hearing any of this, dear. We're offline.
No, we're not
No,
offline. There's
Oh,
no, we're not offline. We're back
oh,
online, and right now,
I
uh,
had no idea. I did not know.
yeah, they're coming back in. We're back up to we're up to 12 watching right now live. So we had
Oh,
well,
well,
we
cool.
had almost 40 watching live.
Yeah,
So
I actually saw 40 briefly
so we
once,
were doing
Derek.
all right, and unfortunately, everybody, I lost my internet and I had to restart my router. Charles, thank you so much for being with us. And if you've got a few more minutes, Charles, if you're okay, um, I see you're unmuted. Is your microphone working? Can we hear you?
Yeah, I think it's all right. Yeah.
All right. Have you got a few more minutes?
Yeah. I'll stick around, and thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure seeing you guys again, and being on your awesome show.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to have you. You're one of my favorite people. I do want to go over one or two more things that I didn't get to cover. I've got a screen grab here, and oops, I need to go ahead and do a share so that you guys can see what I'm doing and everybody else can see. So you should have my screen now.
Yep. Yep.
Um, this is a screen grab that I took from your video, your most recent upload. You recognize this, yes?
Indeed, yeah.
And you were wondering about the glyphs on this artifact. Besides the fact that they look like runes, besides the fact that this one over here on the right looks very Egyptian, uh,
Yes, it does.
and obviously we've got a clear cross here, and the others have very rune-ish nature to whatever they are. But I've got this one circled here in blue, which is the cross, and there are the three droplets coming out of this cross. And it stuck out to me, and again, I don't mean to, uh, beat a dead horse, but as you can see, I've written Venus. It looks to me like that might be Venus, and that is because of this original symbol, which is the Native American medicine wheel, otherwise known as a dream catcher, and that's exactly the same symbol with a few extra arms. Uh, uh, one has the 4 and this one has 8. So the only real difference, where did it go? Where did the thing go? Should be this one. Yes. So there's that one with the cross and the 3 drops, or 3 whatevers. And so there you go. You've got the cross and
It's
the.
got it's
Yeah.
got that sort of square in there. What could that be?
I don't know. But when I saw that, I thought to myself, well, I have seen that symbol before. And it only took me about 2 minutes to find it. And it's the medicine wheel. It's the dream catcher.
They could all be based on an ancient alphabetic letter as well, which also could be the Venus representation, because alchemy symbols appear to be an alternate kind of alphabet, which, as we know, is based on planets. There's alchemy symbols, Mars, Jupiter, and all these planets in alchemy. So, and how old are alchemy symbols as well? Like they seem to be incredibly ancient, but they only really pop up in medieval texts. But they're based on earlier Hebrew texts, earlier alternate Bibles, and you see the alchemy symbols also in ancient Rome and ancient cultures. This is another alphabet we don't know about, maybe a top secret alphabet.
There was something else I wanted to share with you from your video. Um, I think it's this one here. A very darkened image. A screen grab that I took from your video. Today's video. And you said, you kept saying he. He has breasts. He is holding these weapons or whatever. This is Venus. This is Kali. Look at the multiple arms coming out of this thing.
Yeah, at the time I presumed it was a picture of Yahweh, but obviously it being on a moon, well, Yahweh was a moon god as well, but being on the moon is kind of a feminine thing, that usually the moon is the mother. So you might be right. It's a kind of horned Kali weird thing, but a Western version of it. And yeah, crazy. And also staff god as well. So yeah.
Right, right. There was something else that was associated. It might have been this one here. This is the upper portion of that same tablet you were looking at. Now, this to me is a dead giveaway. These two images right here, top dead center, are a dead giveaway. This
Yeah.
is Venus. This is the star. This is the Astara, Ishtar. This,
Astarte.
Astarte. This, on the right side, is quite clearly Ahura Mazda. This is the winged serpent, the winged disc. I recognize those two right off the bat. So I don't know if you are picking up on what I'm seeing, but I will very quickly, I'll just pull up an image of Ahura Mazda. Get up to where I can type.
Fire and sun is also resurrection. It's yeah.
There's Ahura Mazda right there. The winged disc, which I also think might be related to Venus. So this is the Zoroastrian god, Ahura Mazda. And if you'll notice, these two spirally legs that come down out of the bottom left and the bottom right,
There we go. Yeah.
which are
Again.
almost a dead giveaway for the images that I showed a little while ago. So you can see there, that's Ahura Mazda, right? You can see this.
Yeah. It could well be. It could well be.
And where did they go? It was in the other folder right here. That's these guys right there. Those are the spirals that right there.
Yeah.
The spirally arms coming out of it. So if you just literally just flip that image upside down, then the spiral arms come down and out rather than up and out. So it really kind of depends on where you are on Earth and how you observe this thing in the sky. And you were mentioning the skulls on the top images. And again, they have the spirals and they're flaming coming out of the skull. And they're almost like a cometary tail. And yet we've got the spiral tendrils and the flames, which are all indicative of the serpent, the winged dragon, the feathered serpent, the disheveled hair, the fiery serpent. And those are all, to me, symbols of the comet. We have a skull with the fire flames, hairy stuff coming out the backside.
Yep. Those are fiery serpent representations for sure. For sure.
One other thing I wanted to show you, Charles. At 14 minutes in your video, not one other, I got maybe another 2 or 3 that I want to show you. This is a screen grab from your video today. Remind me, what exactly, this is Egypt, obviously. You can see the Egyptian eyes at the very top there, Eye of Ra at the top center. You thought, I mean, what, this was maybe a casing stone? And you were trying to interpret these images here. And you said in your video that these are shafts of wheat. Did you say that in your video? I'm pretty sure you said.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy in the middle, I would bet my life that that right there is Ophiuchus. The constellation Ophiuchus. Here's why I say this. First, we've got the stars down here on the bottom right, which tell you clearly that whatever you're looking at is in the sky. This is a sky thing. This is a constellation. This is happening in the sky because of the representations of the stars. The reason this is Ophiuchus is because of this serpent figure right here that goes right across his midsection. Okay, both of his arms, one to the right and one to the left. And then we've got this serpent which cuts right across his midsection. This, Charles, let me show you this. This is a screen grab that I took from Stellarium. I don't know if you have this. This is a fantastic, absolutely fantastic software package. It's free. That's Ophiuchus. That's the wrestler. He wrestles the serpent. In Egypt, they had a tradition, you may be familiar since you do a lot of Egyptology. The Egyptians, they had a 360-day solar year, and then they had a 5-day period where they didn't take on any new endeavors, no business ventures, nobody did business, kind of like a festival period. It was a week-long festival, it was 5 days, which gave them the 365-day year that we have today. So they had 12 constellations, 12 months, and then Ophiuchus was the 13th, which was unlucky. That's why you didn't take on any new business ventures. Nobody bought and sold anything during this time for a 5-day period. And the 13th month in Egyptian astronomy is represented by the constellation Ophiuchus, the wrestler. And he wrestles this giant serpent. And you look, see that serpent cuts right across his midsection there. One arm to the left, one arm to the right. That's Ophiuchus. I'm almost certain, I would nearly bet my life, Charles, that this, let me get to it. Where did it go? Oops. You still with me?
Yeah. I wasn't familiar with this Ophiuchus character, actually. That's quite interesting. But all the Greek stuff is from Egypt. So it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to have to look into this mythology of this guy. Interesting.
Yeah, this is Ophiuchus. He's the 13th constellation of the 13th month. And he represents the 5-day period, which makes up the difference of because they were on a sexagesimal system based on 6 and 12.
Mm.
So they had a 360-day year. And then they had a 5-day period, which is kind of like a fill-in, like a leap year period for 5 days. And it was represented by the 13th constellation known as Ophiuchus, which is the wrestler with this giant serpent. And when you said chaff of wheat, you said it looks like he's carrying shafts of wheat. And maybe your resolution is better than mine. It looks like he is carrying a shaft of wheat. Let me show you this. It's the same image from the same Stellarium package. Where did it go? Here we go. Okay. Ophiuchus sits right below Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
And Virgo, which represents the month of September, which is the beginning of the harvest month, she always carries a shaft of wheat.
Oh.
Yes, she does.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it's September, it's harvest time.
Uh-huh.
And
Well, yeah.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I know it's wheat because it looks like the Egyptian letter E, which really is a shaft of wheat. And that kind of looks like that. So yeah.
I'm telling you, Charles, this astrology stuff, there's really something to it. Watch
Oh,
this.
Astrotheology.
It's all the same. Astrotheology, astrology, look at it the way you want. Let me show you this real quick. This, I'm going to pull up an image of the Virgin Mary, because I have made the case Virgin Mary artwork images. I want to show you a couple of things, and I think I showed you some of these when you and I spoke about astrotheology. It's extraordinarily often that you'll see the Virgin Mary with a dress or a cloak or a gown that is studded with stars. I mean, look at her shawl. studded with stars. That's a dead giveaway. And look, the moon under her feet. And if you pay very, very, very close attention, there's a serpent somewhere under her feet. She almost always tramples the serpent. Let me get a better one.
That's true.
So if you look at ancient or like Renaissance artwork of the Virgin Mary, there's a serpent under her feet. She's usually standing on the moon. She's usually associated with the moon. She's a moon goddess. Look at how often she's depicted with the moon. Let me get a better, like Renaissance, not modern time stuff. Here we go. This is something, here's decent. There's the serpent. She's trampling the serpent. She's standing on the moon and trampling the serpent. Again and again and again and again. Now, most of these are modern depictions. Let me go see if I can get some Renaissance.
Is there a constellation of this?
It's Virgo.
It's Virgo.
It's Virgo because Virgo
is standing on the wrestler with the serpent.
Virgo is Virgo.
Oh, that's interesting.
Virgo is directly above Ophiuchus, which is the wrestler holding the serpent, and look, the serpent is right below her feet.
Ha! There we go.
So
Very
the
nice.
Virgin Mary is Virgo, the Virgin, and that's why. I mean, if you look at like the Bible says Revelation, I think it's Revelation 12, says that she will be clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet. And here she is, standing on the moon, trampling a serpent. The moon at her feet, trampling the serpent. That's the serpent of Ophiuchus. That's the constellation Virgo.
Well, that explains it.
And you can just repeat this process again and again and again and again and again. The Virgin Mary, standing on the moon, trampling a serpent, almost every single time. I think that one's actually cut off. This statue, there she is, standing on the moon, and almost always a snake under her feet. There she is, standing on the moon. Here she is in the clouds, and look under her feet. Look under her toes. There's a serpent right there. It's very obscure. And if you look even closer, this cherub has his hand on the tip of the moon. There's a little crescent moon poking out right there. It's all very obscure. This is not meant to be in your face. This is all obscure stuff. But it's always there. The moon at her feet, trampling a serpent. Again and again. Somewhere I've got a folder with like a dozen or more of these images of the Virgin Mary. Time and time again, there she is in the clouds with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, look, 12. 12 cherubs. Those are the constellations. She's in the clouds.
Yeah, and she's at the center of the zodiac as well. It would seem like is Virgo. Is Virgo? They're sort of on a wheel, aren't they?
Well, in Egypt, the Egyptian astrology, they begin their astrology chart with Leo, and it ends with Virgo, or the other way around. It begins with Virgo and it ends with Leo.
What do you make of that? We've got Grid Alien has a picture as result.
Over there.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I just had to point that out. Why would you get her with that search? I have to wonder.
Because
I'm
she.
sure it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Hey, do you remember when I covered this? Greta has been named the next vicar of Christ or something like that. The next.
Yes.
What was it they said? There was an article where the Swedish church
I think it was the
named
next
the
incarnation.
incarnation of Christ or something like that. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So she's like about to be beatified or some shit. Oh yeah, Greta.
Yeah, Greta is Jesus returned,
Yeah.
I guess.
So
Oh,
so here's another one. Here's another one. Virgin Mary, standing on the moon, trampling a serpent.
Hmm.
I mean, I could spend an hour on this. That's the constellation Virgo. It is the constellation Virgo. I would bet my life on it. And oops, what happened? I opened the wrong folder.
You're definitely correct. I've often wondered about this myself because in Poland, being very Catholic, every museum, every church, you see that she's standing on the moon, and not all the time, but sometimes with the snake. And yes, she's surrounded by stars, showing she's up in the stars, literally constellation.
Yep. The Virgin Mary is the constellation Virgo. She's in the stars. Her clothing is usually studded with stars. Her shawl is
and
usually star-studded.
doesn't she appear occasionally with some wheat around her?
Mm.
I
She.
believe
Oh,
so.
yes. Thank you, Amy. Yes, thank you. That's an important. That's an important.
Mhm.
That's definitely important aspect. Let me pull that back up because almost always, again and again and again, you'll find the Virgin Mary shown with a chaff of wheat either in her hand or near
So-
her
Somewhere nearby, yes.
or a cherub is, let me see, Renaissance. How do you spell Renaissance?
Rain. Oh no, Renaissance. Sorry.
Yeah.
Try that. Renaissance art, Virgin Mary. I want images. Um, a ridiculous amount of times you'll see the Virgin Mary with wheat, or a cherub is about to hand her a chaff of wheat, or somewhere in the image. These ones aren't. Oh, look here. Here's one showing some. Those. It's not really wheat. Um, where did they go? I had a whole bunch.
Yeah, I know.
I used to have a whole collection of these, and I don't know where the folder went.
Yeah, that's why
The
because
Assumption. Here it
I
is.
saw you.
See, why did it give me this? I clicked on the Assumption. The Assumption of Mary. And that's not what I want.
Jeez. I never use Google. I'm a duck person all the way.
The Assumption of Mary. Here you go. Here's a good one. Here's a good example. Again, we have 12 cherubs. If you count the cherubs that are full-bodied with faces, not the little faces in the clouds, but the cherubs that have full bodies and faces, there are 12 in total. So there's your 12 constellations. And look here on Mary's left hand, cherub is handing her a chaff of wheat. This is known as the Assumption of Mary.
That's all for you. And will the serpent be close to him? He's also holding a wreath or something.
He is
Yeah,
holding.
it
He is
is.
holding a wreath.
See, there's two shafts of wheat. There's one on the other side as well, near the angel, which is next to this one, away from Mary. There's also a shaft of wheat coming out of that one. So that's like the two staves. You see?
No, which other one?
So the one who's holding the shaft of wheat, and then you just go down to the right, downwards, and that other guy is
Oh.
also holding. Yeah, right there. Yep.
Yeah, I see it.
Ophiuchus, but the Egyptian Ophiuchus. Well, a vague abstract idea, a representation sort of Ophiuchus. That's very interesting. I didn't know this stuff.
So again, I mean, this is a different version, assumption of the Blessed Mary. If you count all these people or cherubs, there's three there, there's three there in groups. And the three and the three, those are representations of the months, of the seasons. So there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's a faint figure back there, 11. And there's a hand down here, so there's another one. This is cropped off, so there's your 12.
Wow.
And it wouldn't surprise me if there was very subtly embedded. I don't see this.
That hand is holding up something where it's cropped off. I'm not sure. It looks more like holly than it does wheat, but
Yeah.
That will surely also be in the zodiac. Is there any holly or reef or something in the regular zodiac?
Well, the holly and the wreath, those are all representations of harvest and fertility, because we're talking about harvesting crops and things of that nature. So you're always going to see something of that kind, something of that nature involved. I used to have I don't know where it went. I don't know where it, and I don't want to waste you guys' time for me to go and find it. But I had a whole folder with at least 24 images of the Virgin Mary that had the moon at her feet with sheaves of wheat, trampling a serpent, 12 cherubs, again and again and again, in the clouds, in the sky, in the stars, over and over and over.
yeah, I remember you showing me all of those.
And again, Charles, color is symbolic, it's important. So if you look at the colors that Mary is depicted with, you have three colors. You have the white, which is purity. You have blue, which is water. Women are always associated with water, because when a woman is pregnant, her water breaks. When, every baby is born through water. So women are always associated with water. She's white because she's pure, and she's blue because of the water, and those are women colors. And then occasionally you'll see her depicted in pink or red because of the monthly flow that women have to go through. So there is that association with women and blood.
True.
And so whenever you look at images of the Virgin Mary, look at the colors. They're always white, red, and blue. Red, blue, red, and white. Red, white, and blue. Always. Always, always. Just like I was saying about Judas Iscariot. He's always yellow, red, orange. So these colors are important. Always. Look at all these images of the Virgin Mary. All of them. Red, white, or blue. Red and blue. Or white and blue. Red and blue. White and blue. Always. This is not an accident. Anyway, I'll leave it there. So yeah, Charles, spend some time on the Thunderbolts project, and
Yeah, you inspired me to do that, to check out some of their videos. Yeah.
I highly recommend them, and suspicious observers, even though they, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know they got caught on the live stream or not. For some reason, there's some animosity between the electric universe and the plasma universe, even though they seem to be pretty much the same as far as their science is concerned.
Is that because of the controversy over the inventor of the electric universe?
I have no idea. Like I said, I do not know why there is such animosity.
Because there's not just Thornhill and Peratt and all that. There's also a Hungarian bloke also came up with it differently and independently some years earlier. So maybe that's the plasmauniverse.net. Is that what it is?
I don't know what the website is. I just watch Suspicious Observers.
I see. Okay.
And that, just for your information, observers is spelt with a 0, not an O.
Okay.
So it's Suspicious Zero Observers.
And the other thing, Electric Universe, it's kind of almost like a trademark of Thornhill and Co. And Plasma Universe is the term used by Eric Lerner in his 1980s book, The Big Bang Never Happened, in which he's championing the Electric Universe. And I don't know if you've read that book. It's bloody long.
What's it called?
The Big Bang never happened.
The Big Bang happened. And that book, all the Electric Universe seems to sprout, a lot of it seems to sprout out of that book. And this guy was pushing the Electric Universe in the 80s. Now he's working on getting funding to build a fusion reactor, if you look him up. That book, that's a great book, and that taught me a lot about Electric Universe. But it is so long and a bit repetitive as well. And he's trashing cosmology, he's trashing the Big Bang, and he says, look, it needs to be laboratory done, and he's totally correct.
He's absolutely right, because plasma experiments, electrical experiments are scalable up to an enormous number of orders of magnitude. So everything from a laboratory experiment all the way up to a galactic scale, we can replicate with electrical and plasma phenomenon from a laboratory all the way up to galactic, or even larger than galactic scale, up to entire nebulas. And I'm in agreement that the Big Bang never happened. I am not a proponent of Big Bang, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Halton Arp. Halton Arp, are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
It's the quasars, yeah?
Yeah. Halton Arp was Edwin Hubble's assistant, and Halton Arp took over the observatory when Hubble left and retired. So Edwin Hubble is the guy famous for detecting redshift. Okay, the redshift observation his thesis was that it was the expansion of the universe. It was a Doppler effect of light. Okay, so he postulated that the things that he was observing were moving further away faster, and they were more redshifted, and that's why they were getting the redshift. They were postulating it was the Doppler effect of light. Well, Halton Arp, who was his own assistant, comes along and blows that theory out of the water with his observations.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm not mistaken, before Hubble died, he's actually quoted as refuting his own findings. So the redshift, the Doppler effect of light, the redshift observations that show the supposed expansion of the universe is false. So,
yes.
Yep. Agreed.
So without the expansion, we don't have contraction. If you don't wind the clock backwards, we don't have the Big Bang. So the Big Bang never did happen. I'm on board with that.
Yeah, me too.
This was also a theory. You know, Fred Hoyle, who was I don't know if he got the Nobel Prize or he was nominated, but he was a brilliant mathematician. He wrote about Stonehenge, about the eclipses as well, that it was an eclipse computer. And he was also a panspermia guy, and he was a physicist. And he said he championed the solid state universe. And he also said they buggered up the experiments on Mars, the life experiments, and they should have concluded that it looks like there is life because there was a release of gas from these rocks. to show that. But anyway, he championed the solid state universe. He said the ice ages are a bunch of crap because the so-called Milankovitch cycles are rubbish. I really respect the guy, but yeah, he came up with this solid state idea, which has fallen out of favor. And he said the light could be simply absorbed by things along the way. So that's what this red shift is, and I agree with that. I think the light is being absorbed by maybe dark matter or just
No,
dust.
not dark matter. There is no such thing as dark matter. What
What it is.
what they're finding is that there's a lot of matter that we didn't see before because we weren't looking at it right. They've started looking in other bandwidths and going, "Holy Toledo, look at all this matter."
Well,
So it's
plasma. They're saying now that plasma makes up 99.9% of all the matter in the universe. And they came up with this theory of dark matter, which has yet to be observed or proven or demonstrated. And they came up with this theory to explain the anomalies that their standard model cannot explain,
yep.
which is the force of the force of electromagnetism.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The absence of electromagnetism, the absence of electromagnetism in conventional theories creates a hole because there's not enough mass to move things around. Because the whole skew of conventional cosmology is gravity is bending and warping everything in the universe, and there's not enough gravity to explain all the folds and everything, which is where electric universe must come in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
dark matter and dark energy is bunk. It's fudge factor because their models don't work.
Yep. They say, "Oh gosh, we got to plug something in
We
here
need
to make it work. What shall we call it? Oh, let's call it dark matter. Let's call it dark energy."
Yep, it's horseshit.
And by the way, Aaron, I wanted to mention to you that I fully and 100%ly agree with you that the ether is the electrogravito-magnetic field that pervades the universe. And it explains why in electrogravitics they noticed that there was a variation in the amount of power gotten depending on the time of day, which would be explained by the galactic energies and the way they relate to the spinning Earth. And that is why I have decided you're absolutely right.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
And you know, Charles, if Velikovsky was correct, if the Bible story of the sun standing still in the sky for more than a day, and the stories and mythologies on the other side of the earth say that they had an extended nighttime period, if that's correct, then that means that the earth slowed down in its rotation, not orbit but rotation, slowed down temporarily, probably due to a close encounter with another large planetary body like Venus, a close encounter. Now imagine for a minute the mass and inertia. Earth is supposed to be rotating at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Imagine trying to put the brakes on that. What would happen? The crustal plates would crash into each other. The oceans would come out of their basins. That would account for
Yeah, they'd keep going.
that would account for the flood myth. That would account for all kinds of catastrophic apocalyptic mythologies.
Yes.
By the way, in the plasma universe, as presented by suspicious observers, there's some evidence that uh, hesitation in the rotation is relative to the magnetic pole flip,
Right.
which we're seeing as we speak. So
This has been a
maybe
blast. Charles, what do you want to add here before we close it out? Because I've kept you long enough.
I just want to say that was absolutely amazing because we covered every topic there is. Bigfoot to transatlantic. We covered yeah, we covered it. We covered it all, and electric universe as well, which is just a brilliant topic, a magnificent topic. Yeah.
Right. Well, again, finally, I would just urge you one more time to, take into consideration this astrology and astrotheological perspective when you're doing your assessments, because it plays such an important role in the ancient life of cultures around the world. Every culture venerated the gods as planets, as stars, the sun, the moon. Everything that was happening in the sky was so important to these people. And that's why all the carvings and petroglyphs and hieroglyphs, monuments and structures and buildings were all constructed based on stuff that was happening in the sky. So uh, for me, that's my main filter. Every time I look at something, it goes through that filter first.
Well, yeah, fair enough, because it was like a photograph. They want to preserve something that was extraordinary forever. So for sure, that is a very good theory.
Well, I got a friend who wants to join us, but I'm going to close this out, and maybe I'll do an after show stream, or we can chat privately offline. Charles, if you want to hang around, feel free to.
Yeah.
If you have stuff to do, then thank you for your time, and we love you, and I can't wait to talk to you again. It was great catching up with you. But I'm going to invite my friend Killendale in here, somebody I've known for a little while, and he's a good guy, and he's got some interesting stuff that I'm sure he can add to the conversation. And like I said, if you want to hang around and see what he has to say, feel free. And I may just go ahead and close this and start a new stream, and I'll call it the after show or whatever. But thanks, Charles, and let's close it out, and we'll go final thoughts, everybody. Is Gandalf still with us? Did he have to leave? Yeah, he left. Gandalf left. So, Amy, final thoughts. Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had my mic down and I didn't. Love always, and check out my channel, my work. Let's make this planet better than it is now.
Indeed. Charles, final thoughts, sir.
Well, thank you for having me on my program. I think we've all learned a lot from each other. I've learned a huge amount, especially about Virgo and about the constellation, astrotheology. Thank you so much for having me. I hope to do it again soon.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, and we do love you around here. And as always, my final thoughts are always the same: be good to each other and pick up your trash. And with that, for anybody who's still watching, and if you care, then our upcoming shows, we have Global Agenda next week, and I'm pretty sure we have Anti-Logical the week after that.
Yeah,
And
yes, we definitely have Anti-Logical the week following that.
okay, so thanks everybody for checking us out, and I do apologize for my internet interruption, but it is what it is. It's a free show, so hey,
Yeah, there you go.
shit happens. And thanks everybody. We do love you, and we will check you guys out next week. And if you want, come back in a few minutes because I'm probably going to start restreaming in just a minute. I'm going to get Killendale in here and see what he wants to talk about. Well, I'm going to close it out. Thanks, Charles. You're brilliant as always. Thanks.
Yeah.
Start streaming.